Fantastic. And thank you so much for having invited me, and indeed a great honor to join this illustrious conference. Before I get going, just a quick tech check. Is the connection good enough? Can you hear me just fine?
I can hear you just fine, not perfectly. So it's not probably top level, the connection, right? I'm asking also the service, but we can probably follow you.
Yes. Okay, let's try our best. Fantastic. Yeah, so the quick input I'd like to give now is under the headline of circular disruption. And the core message of this entire talk is that my perspective is actually that a lot is happening right now in the field of circular economy. A lot of progress is happening. And that I think we may act our economic system much more than probably ever before. And I think this is an important key message to push out there, because if I look into the field of circular economy these days, both in practice as well as in academia, I feel that sometimes there's a lot of negativity. So if you open up the latest articles published in scholarly journals on circular economy, you'll oftentimes read that these articles start by people outlining how little progress we've been making towards the circular economy in the last couple of years, and that maybe the concept is too fuzzy, too complicated to ever become reality. And I actually wholeheartedly disagree with these negative statements. I actually think if you look more carefully, there's a lot of progress that's been made. And I want to give 4 examples of this progress, 4 signposts of this progress to really make this point. Signpost number 1 is really if you look into the field of research, where we've seen more and more excellent research coming out each and every year. In fact, in 2014, so 10 years ago, just around 300 scholarly articles were published per year on circular economy. This year, and the year is not even over, 7,500 articles have already been published on the topic, which already today in October is more than have been published in the entire last year, right? And obviously, not all of these articles will translate into also practical impact, but I think some of these articles for sure will. And I'm very bullish and very excited about seeing so many scholars actually throwing their hat into this field and trying to push the thinking on circular economy. So I think that's signpost number 1, that we're actually making quite a bit of progress. Signpost number 2 is in the realms of policymaking. And I also think we've seen amazing progress here in the last couple of years. If you look into research on policies for a circular economy, you'll find some scholars that actually did counting on circular economy roadmaps adopted by countries. And you'll find that prior to 2016, there had only been 4 circular economy roadmaps published by countries on this very topic. So very little policy activity on circular economy. If you look now, since 2016, we've actually seen the publication of 71 different national roadmaps towards circular economy. I'm German. My own country, Germany, has also published its circular economy roadmap for Germany only this summer. So there's a huge activity in terms of policy making. And it's needless to say that obviously not all of these roadmaps have yet been translated into legislation, and that not all of this legislation has actually then also translated into progress on the ground when it comes to circular economy. But I think the very fact that there's now 75 countries in the world having a circular economy roadmap already makes me very optimistic. And I think many of those roadmaps will help to ease the playing field for circular business models and help these circular business models grow. And this also leads me to my 3rd signpost, my 3rd identified sign that there's a lot of progress towards circular economy, which is indeed the signpost of businesses, particularly young businesses. I started researching the circular economy back in 2017, and one of the very first research projects I did on circular economy was actually look into circular startups. So young companies, young founders that basically said they will dedicate their entire company to furthering circular economy principles. And back then, my team and I found a couple of hundred of these companies across Europe, most actually in London, in the Randstad area, close to Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and in Berlin. But when we looked into these companies, many of these companies were very, very small companies. So just 5 employees, 10 employees. They had limited revenue. Many of them were actually struggling. We're currently replicating this analysis back from 2017, and we see many, many more circular startups now all across Europe, but also in other parts of the world coming up. And at the same time, and I think this is what's most exciting, we also see a bunch of what we call circular scale-ups. So basically companies that were founded maybe 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago, but they've grown to an extent that they are no startups any longer, that they have hundreds of employees, that they have significant revenue, that venture capitalists have put significant funding into them. And I think, again, this is a wonderful example. Some examples of these companies, for instance, are Twig, as well as Grover. Twig, actually a bit of a sad case in a sense, because they're right now in a massive restructuring, but I think still one of the most exciting circular business models we've seen in the last couple of years. Twig, a London-based company that basically allows you to instantly sell your used electronics or your used clothing, right? So what you can do, for instance, is you can take a picture of your old favorite pullover that was your favorite pullover 2 years ago, but not any longer. And you take a picture in the Twig app, and Twig will say, we're going to pay you 57 euros for this pullover, and we're going to pick it up with the DHL Express tomorrow. You're getting the money immediately. The pickup is tomorrow, and then basically you've gotten rid of your formerly favorite pullover, right? So it's a startup that makes buying and selling of used clothes, but also used electronics, much, much easier. I think an exciting circular business model. And these types of companies now have raised a tremendous amount of money, have millions of users. And I think they really showcase that there's a lot of movement in the field of circular economy, also when it comes to the practical arena. So that's signpost number 3, positive movement in the business world, particularly in the startup and scale-up world. I close with signpost number 4, which is the signpost related to the consumer and to consumer interest. And I did first scenes also 7 years ago. And one of the core, very limited, and actually identified as a core barrier to transitioning to the circular economy, the limited interest of consumers in paying more for products that were circular and maybe slightly more expensive. This again has fundamentally changed. So just to give you some figures here, in 2014, only 20 to 30% of consumers said they would be willing to pay a bit more for a product that's more circular, more sustainable. This figure in 2023 has gone up to 60 to 70%. So really factor times 3, which really shows that there's also been a fundamental shift in the last couple of years in terms of consumer interest, consumer attitudes towards the circular economy, which obviously then makes the life of circular startups, but any company embracing circular economy business models, much, much easier. So overall, my sense is, if you look around a bit, if you look at all of the activity we've seen in research in terms of circular economy, if you look at all of these policy roadmaps out there, if you look at what's happening in the business arena, and if you look into also consumers, there's a lot of root causes that should make you very optimistic regarding the future of the circular economy. I think we are moving towards the circular economy with steps. Obviously, we could always go faster, but I think the negativity that's sometimes prevalent in the discourse right now, I don't think that's justified if you look at the facts, and I actually think we're not in fully good shape yet, but we are for sure on the right trajectory when it comes to circular economy. Yeah, and let me close also my brief input with this, and yeah, very keen for any comments, reflections, or questions on this brief input. And I hope the connection was good enough that you could get a sense of the 4 signposts I was describing. Thank you so much again for inviting me.